Good morning, friends, and welcome back to yet another installment of the Dissertation Diaries. Today, we took a day off of work. We are heading to the National Archives to do some archival research for my PhD dissertation. If you're new here, my name is Kaelyn. I am a PhD candidate in History and African American Studies at Yale University, living in London, working on my PhD dissertation on child labor and the law of slavery in the early modern English Atlantic. And today we are heading over to TNA, or the National Archives, over in Richmond, and we are going to be looking at some apprenticeship records. So, what are apprenticeship records? Back in the early modern period, any kind of legal record of somebody's life was recorded by the local parish. So this included births, deaths, marriages, baptisms, etc. And they also held apprenticeship records, in addition to having the care of several children, such as orphans and children that were left destitute. So under the poor laws of the late 16th century, it was stated that a child born illegitimate, a child that was left in destitution, so parents who could not take care of them, and those who were orphaned would be taken into the care and guardianship of the parish. And many of those children, according to studies by early modern scholars of childhood, have shown that many of those children actually ended up in forced apprenticeship contracts. So they were forced to labor for a trade or for the parish during their time until they were about the age of 21. And my dissertation looks at how this form of forced child labor is an early indication of how the English began to envision bond labor. So that included contractual agreements whereby somebody was forced into servitude, but this is also a precursor for how it is that they began to legalize slavery, and how it is that they legalized racial slavery in the English Atlantic, and more specifically in North America and the Caribbean colonies. I have been to the TNA many times, but this is the first time where I actually feel like what I'm going to be looking at is going to have direct implication in what it is that I'm writing on the dissertation. I'm currently working on chapter 1, which is about child labor and childhood in early modern England. So I'm specifically looking at the late Elizabethan era, so about the turn of the century, and then the early 17th century. So I'm trying to find records ideally before about 1630, but we'll see what we find. So I called up a few documents. They didn't have everything I was looking for, but we'll see what they get, and I will likely have some voiceovers to go over what it is that I'm looking at and my process. Hi friends, I just want to take a quick moment to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is a longtime partner of my channel, and that is Scrintal. So Scrintal is a mind mapping feature that I use for basically every component of my dissertation, and is just such a great tool if you are a visual learner and you need to be able to kind of map out your ideas and move them around and manipulate them with a variety of different tools. And with the Scrintal canvas, you can basically create all of these mind maps and these boards, as you can see here, in order to really work out your ideas. For example, I have my dissertation work plan here. This is how I basically mapped out my entire plan for how it is that I'm going to write the dissertation. And the thing about writing dissertations is that the plan changes all the time. You, for example, head to the archive and you hit a little bit of a roadblock, or something else happens in your life, or you're not writing as quickly as you plan on it. So what's lovely about this Scrintal workboard and this canvas is that I can move things around and I can adjust as needed. So for example, the plan originally was that I was going to finish between January and May of 2026. And if you saw my PhD completion plan video, then you know that that plan has changed a little bit. And so I can go ahead and make adjustments here. But what I want to show you is actually the board that I'm using for planning chapter 1, which is the chapter I'm working on when I'm heading to the archives. So this is my chapter 1 board, and this is basically all of my ideas about the first chapter in an amalgamation of mess because I have many ideas and many different directions that my brain would like to travel in, and I need to find ways to keep it organized. For example, I have this question that I'm posing here that I want to be able to ask of the archive and of the record and of the secondary literature. Were children ever leveraged via indenture as a form of debt bondage? Now, scholars, as I've seen, have said that this was actually the case. As you can see here, I also have quotes, and I have color-coded the heck out of this thing. For example, if there's a specific quote, you see that I've used this teal color. I also have this mind map over here about this conception of the absence of the father in matrilineal descent and within these forms of forced labor. And so as you can zoom out, it looks very, very messy. But Scrintle helps me organize everything in such a way that it takes all of my wild ideas and helps me organize them. So if you are a visual learner, or if you're a researcher and you need to find a way to map out your ideas and bring them all together in an organized way for when you go to write, then I highly recommend Scrintle. I've been using this for months and I just keep building upon the building blocks that I have from months back when I started working on this chapter. So if this is something you're interested in, then go ahead and check on the link in the description below. And thank you again to Scrintle for being a longtime partner of my channel, for offering you all a discount, and for sponsoring today's video. All right, let's head on into the archive. It was quite disorienting being back in the archives and being reminded of what I was focused on this time last year. Last year, I was just focused on my PhD and being a content creator, and it just felt really special to be able to re-embody the historian in me. And I called up 2 documents on this day, and this first box had this really old 17th century manuscript, which you'll see in a minute, was in tatters. It was really, really struggling. And there were binding pieces that were coming off and the pages were coming unglued. It was not in the finest condition, so I was trying to be as gentle as I could with it. I used these blocks in order to prop it open. And as you can see, even on the first page here, it is really broken up and tattered. So I was just trying to be really gentle. But as I got into the record itself, I went ahead and started noting down its condition. One thing that I do, in addition to taking notes on the actual language that is used within the document, is actually writing down the condition of the document and what pen it's in. So a lot of the legal records that I look at will be in secretarial hand, or they'll be in a fine script, whereas others, especially parish records and such, tend to be more standard written script, in which case it's much more difficult to read. I use my Notion dissertation planner to open up my primary research database. This is where I keep all of my primary sources for my dissertation. And if you want to check out the entire dissertation planner, it's available on my website as a Notion template. But I just use this in order to organize all of my records. So I go ahead and enter the information about the title, as well as the reference number, where it is that it was collected. And then I write some things down about the penmanship, the condition, and then how it's organized before going into the transcripts. However, as I got into the document, I started to realize that it wasn't quite giving me what it was that I needed. It was a lot of meeting minutes. And what's kind of challenging about archives and library sciences in general is that categorizing things in the archive can be really tricky. And so while this looked in the catalog like something that would be useful, when I opened it up, while the timing was correct, the actual documentation wasn't what I was looking for. So I gave it a couple of pages, and I'm going through and using this piece of paper so that way I am not actually putting any oils from my fingers onto the page. When you work with an archival manuscript or an old record, you tend to just touch the edges of it. And I get questions sometimes about why I'm not wearing gloves. And it's actually because if you wear gloves, you are more likely to tear it because you can't actually feel the pages. So we use bare, clean hands, and you just touch the edges. So you try to make sure that you never come in contact with any of the ink because it can ruin the document. Now, as you can see, I ended up giving this document back and then grabbing my second box, which did actually have parish records. However, what I realized when I opened the box and started looking through it was that this box also did not quite have what I was looking for. Like I said, sometimes the documentation in archival databases can be a little bit difficult to work with, and so it can say that there is a range of dates, for example, that do meet your requirements, but the actual documents themselves do not. So a lot of these records ended up being late 17th century, which was not helpful for my study specifically. But it was really interesting to see how these were penned and how they were documented. It wasn't what I was wanting, but it was still cool to get back into the archive. Well, I've had one of those unfortunate days of the archive where the things that you order don't actually line up with what you need. I basically called up some Privy Council records, not parish records, for the first box, and then the second box was a bunch of letters, and they were parish records, but they were from the late 17th century, which is just not that helpful for what I need. And I think I need to kind of go back and probably schedule a trip to the London archives in order to get what I actually need. So a bit of a flop, but it was nice to be back. It's been a while since I've been in the archives, at least at Kew, because I've been to the archives, over in Oxford and such. But I'm going to go back home, probably grab a little bit of lunch on the way, and we're going to call up some records at the London archives and speak with their archival team, because I think that that's where the documents are. So, a swing and a miss, but we're going to regroup and figure out next steps. Got a little gingerbread chai at Kuro and a sandwich. So now it's time to head on back to the flat, order up some more documents for another day in the archive at the London archives, and to get a little bit of writing done. I really would like to get some words on paper today since I'm feeling inspired. So let's check out the chai. Oh my god, that's delightful. Okay, let's head back home. I am now home, and I'm wearing my new I'm not stopping until I'm PhD done accepted merch sweater. It's the only thing that came in the mail so far, and it is so cozy. It's extra large. I ordered it that way because I wanted it to be a nice little work from home fit. But the sun is setting because it's like 3 o'clock, of course, because the sun never stays up very long in the winter. And I am working on my archive plans. So I have my computer open with the London Archive website, and I'm having trouble accessing the parish records themselves. So what I'm going to do is actually just contact their archivist. I find that anytime you're having a problem with an archival collection or an online kind of library database, the best thing to do is just contact a research librarian. They know what to do. They're the best. They do not get enough praise for all that they do. But I decided that I'm not going to work from my desk because it is a day off of work. I sit at my desk all day long, every single day. And so figured I would just sit in the living room. Currently, this dog is ignoring me. She has decided that she would prefer to be on the other side of the room rather than sitting with me, which is rude. I don't know what I did, but she doesn't want to sit with me, and it breaks my heart, hurts my soul. But there's nothing I can do to change it. So I have my computer here, the London Archives, and I'm going to go ahead and email the archivist, and then I'm going to do a 25-minute writing sprint. I don't have to do much today. I just want to have 25 minutes to pull my ideas together, because honestly, talking to the camera and talking about my dissertation and just having a day where I'm not working has just given me so much kind of like mental space to actually think about my dissertation. So I'm going to do a bit of a brain dump and see how many words that produces. All right, friends, that actually concludes the rest of this episode of the Dissertation Diaries and another installment for Vlogmas. I hope that you enjoyed a return to the archives with me and working on my PhD dissertation. There are going to be more dissertation updates throughout Vlogmas, so make sure that you subscribe and stick around for the next video. I will see you all next time. Bye, friends.